Hi, it's Theresa. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to take a look at some watercoloring techniques. Sometimes when you're making cards, it's hard to get started on some of these techniques. So I thought I'd take a few minutes to show you how I go about doing watercolors on the various papers, as well as how to do it without making it very complicated. Hope this makes sense. So let's get started. The first thing you'll see me do is of course grab the watercolors. I have two different kinds that I'm looking at today. One is the Close to My Heart watercolor palette. You can see it's well used, it's loved. My grandchildren also use it. So then the second thing I have something called Hethron, and it's a dual tip brush pen. Is nice to use also when you're looking to make things a little bit more on the finer part. So the first thing I do is I take a look and I swatch of these colors. There are so many colors. The one thing I would recommend if I were to get this set of watercolors again is I would make sure that they already have the numbers on them. What I have done is I've labeled them, and you'll see that in the upcoming next part of this video. So I'm going to show you several techniques in this section of the video. What you're seeing here is I'm using the watercolor marker, brush marker, and there's no water on the paper. I'm just putting it from the paint to the paper. This is not watercolor paper. So, and then I'm pulling the color away from it to get a little bit lighter look around it. As you can see, it does not work as well on paper that's not watercolor. So you'll see me occasionally go off screen to grab some water to try to help pull that out. So you'll see a series of those flowers that I'm doing to kind of build a background and to do some practicing. One of the things I always do as I'm working with watercolors is I take a few minutes to practice to make sure I'm feeling comfortable with the brush itself. So that's one tip. The other item here, what you're going to see, is I'm also going to be drawing some leaves. Leaves are good for me as a practice and use as examples. Then I'm going to turn around and I'm actually going to be doing some branches and adding those branches. I get a little heavy there, so I've got to take a little bit off, which is another tip, by the way. If you get a little heavy on the watercolor, on the marker itself, you can always take a little bit of it off several different ways, and you'll hear about those in this video. But now I'm adding the yellow flowers to it to kind of give it some nice spring look. And then I'll put the brush to the brown color and add the centerpiece for the yellow. And you'll see this very same type of example coming up with the watercolor markers. As you can see, when I'm doing these teal leaves, I'm getting much more comfortable with the water brush. And then one of the things I always do also is I go in and add some white if I get a little bit heavy on those first leaves, which I did as I was going through, learning the marker all over again. And I'll just add a little bit of white to bring back the white color. And you'll see this very same type of example coming up with the watercolor mark. So here what you're seeing is I'm actually using the markers, the brush tip marker right now, and I don't have any water on the paper. I am dipping my watercolor brush marker in water, but I started the first one with direct to paper with the brush. Then I decided I wasn't crazy about that look, so I moved to using the marker tip itself and just touching the water brush marker to it. And then I'm also practicing again, working with these markers to try to learn how to use them to make these leaves. And you see here I'm using the blue there. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill those in a little bit. Feeling much more comfortable with the markers right now. And then last but not least, we're going to do the same example that we did a few minutes ago with the paint. and we're going to actually build the yellow flowers where they have the yellow tips and the brown centers. So I'll take a look at this and see how well it turns out with the markers, and I am definitely feeling much more comfortable with the actual brush tip markers by Hethron here. So here, I don't know that I show this a lot of times in my videos, so I'm going to go ahead and add this to the video today. So I hit it with my embossing buddy, and I'm going to set this up with a black Versamark fine ink pad. And so I'll grab my heat tool for after using my embossing powder, and you'll see it melt. I'm trying to pull it toward the screen so you can see how shiny it is and that it's complete. It just has a wonderful, beautiful look, and it's really great when you're watercoloring. I'll be showing you techniques in both using the paints and of course the Hethron markers. But what I thought I'd do here is I thought I would go ahead and play some music, and you'll see I'll stop throughout the process and give you some ideas of how I'm doing it if it's not clear. So first, what we'll do is we'll use the Close to My Heart paints, and I will be using the brush marker. It's just a clear brush marker that's available from Close to My Heart, and I'll be taking that into the water, picking up the paint, and putting it on the paper. I am not putting water on the paper in this first example using Close to My Heart paints. Okay. Okay, I sped that up quite a bit to try to save some time. What you'll see in this next part of the video is I'm now using the Hethron markers, and I start with one technique, which is basically putting the marker directly to the paper. I'm getting that darker look, which, by the way, if you don't know, watercolors do dry lighter once they dry. So I'm starting with that method. Then I move to putting water on the paper and then adding the marker to the paper. And then last but not least, on this one, you'll see me actually taking the water to the paper and then just barely touching it with the marker. I know this was a lot of information, so I wanted to just take a minute to thank you for joining me for this longer than usual tips and trends and techniques. And I wanted to let you know that here in the end, I am going to show you two cards that I made. One is a happy birthday card, and the other one is more of a anniversary card. And I really think they turned out great. As you'll see, they do dry a little bit lighter, but they both turned out really, really good. So I really think this was a success. So more videos to come. I will have another one coming out shortly, which is basically using some leftover materials from a Happiness Lives Here workshop. It's a scrapbooking workshop from close to my heart, and that video will be coming out soon. Thanks for joining me again today, and have a great day.